There's an estimated 280 million people worldwide that have depression. Clearly, it's a global issue. There are effective treatment options available, combining therapy with different types of pills that most people have to take every single day for the rest of their lives. Effective, but not exactly convenient. There's a reason why less than half of all patients don't stick with their treatment. Now imagine a new drug that could provide almost immediate benefits and continue those benefits for 12 weeks after just a single dose. That drug might have just succeeded in a phase 3 clinical trial. And the wildest part? That drug is LSD. What's up, nerds? Yes, it's another psychedelics video, alright? And as much as I like to cover the entirety of the drug discovery space, you people voted for this, alright? For those of you who have been here for the first 2 videos, thanks so much. Come here, give Papa a smooch. For those who haven't, let me give you the lowdown. People have been using psychedelics as an alternative medicine for practically ever, but there hasn't been a lot of cases where a clinical trial have convinced drug regulators to make it approved for the broader public. One company called Lykos Therapeutics got pretty close a few years ago when they tried to use their version of MDMA, yes, that type of MDMA, to try and treat PTSD. No matter how many times I use it, this meme cracks me up. Though the PTSD symptoms clearly improved, the patients were also clearly high as balls. Trials for this treatment couldn't be blinded, so the FDA canned them. This failure meant the entire psychedelic space had a bit of a come down. But from the ashes, there were 2 companies that would rise and never give up hope. One was Compass Pathways, who had a psilocybin derivative used to treat treatment-resistant depression, patients who had already failed 2 different antidepressants. Then there's Definium, the main target of today's video. They're the ones using this LSD derivative to try and treat major depressive disorder. This encompasses most people living with depression. It's a much broader patient population. Both these companies are driving on the regulatory highway at incredible speeds because they both have a priority review voucher, which can speed up the FDA review time significantly. So to be very clear, neither of these companies have a drug that is clinically approved. They both still need to prove that they are efficacious in a well-defined, randomized, phase 3 clinical trial. But over the last few months, they've both been giving us a little bits of what their clinical trial data looks like. But before we talk about those clinical trial results, we have to take a step back, really hone in on the chemistry and the engineering, because those are crucial to how this entire operation works. Let's talk about DT120. DT120, the name that Definium is giving their new drug product, is a meticulously formulated version of LSD. Lysergic acid diethylamide. Good old acid. Yes, it's derived naturally from a fungus, but this is very much synthetic. They act on these certain receptors in your brain called 5-HT2A receptors. You can check out my other videos for a more in-depth explanation of how these receptors play into the default mode network, the parts of the brain that are hyperactive in patients with depression. But in summary, binding to 5-HT2A receptors increases neuroplasticity, decreases the activity of the parts of the brain that make you think bad thoughts. Now, it's important to note that increasing the activity of 5-HT2A receptors plays a significant role in people hallucinating. Hold on to that. We'll get back to that later. A big hurdle that LSD has always had to overcome is the fact that, yes, it is helpful for people with depression, but it's bad if it makes them hallucinate too much. And this is where the chemistry and the engineering are crucial to DT120's success. Now, formulating drugs with different salts is incredibly boring, but it is one of the most important things in the drug development process. Basically, companies take their different active pharmaceutical ingredients, in this case, LSD, and combine it with different salts, different ionic compounds. When both of these are put into solution, the salt dramatically changes how that active compound behaves. Everything from how it dissolves, how it absorbs into your bloodstream, how long it can stably sit on a shelf without actually changing the active component. Now, Definium didn't need me to yap because they already knew that. DT120 has 3 important layers to it. LSD, the active molecule, an undisclosed tartarate salt, and Zydus ODT. This special tablet technology licensed from a company called Catalent that everything is put into. Helps to dissolve little bits of the drug in your mouth before you swallow. Enters your bloodstream under your tongue, against your cheek, directly through mucosal tissue. Now, they claim it has 3 specific advantages: faster therapeutic onset, better bioavailability, and fewer incidences of gastrointestinal side effects. This is basically the holy trinity. It works quicker, your body has an easier time grabbing those molecules from your blood and into necessary tissues, and you get fewer tummy aches. Many formulation and mechanism details are still unknown, they are still proprietary. It's likely that this formulation is what helps to keep hallucinations low. At least this is my best guess based on other studies in the field and the clinical data. Speaking of clinical data, welcome to Emerge. That's just the name of the clinical trial. They'll just have they have fun little names. A phase 3 randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. The highest standard of clinical trial that you can do. All patients had major depressive disorder, or MDD. One half took DT120 at 100 micrograms one single time. That's it, just once. The other half got a placebo. Over the next 12 weeks, patients were rated on their Montgomery-Åsberg Depression Rating Scale, or MATTRS. It looks at 10 different depression-related symptoms and scores them from 0 to 6. Things like apparent sadness, reported sadness, suicidal thoughts. Basically, the lower a doctor scores you, the less your depression symptoms are. Now keep in mind that it's quite significant for a single treatment to reduce your score by 2 points. Because here's where DT120 really shines. After the first week, DT120 dropped their MATTRS score by 14.2 more points than a placebo. And the effect keeps going. At week 6, there was still an 8.1 point drop, and at week 12 was still 7.3 points lower than placebo. But hold on, it gets better. Definium reported that 99% of treatment-related adverse events were mild to moderate and only showed up on the first day of dosing. And there was no increase in suicidal thoughts or behaviors. And here's the thing, it was only one dose. One of the biggest issues with the most common type of antidepressants, these selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, is that people have to take them every single day for the rest of their lives. And this almost never happens. Half of all patients taking SSRIs end up quitting them within the first few months. And not only that, it usually takes like 4 to 6 weeks for people to start noticing the effects of them. It really seems like a no-brainer. But remember that nothing is perfect. One thing I didn't mention today, but did mention in my first 2 videos, is that taking acid isn't as easy as sitting on your couch and petting your dog while you do it. It involves 5 to 8 hours of clinician supervision after you take it. Just make sure that you don't,
It's a bad trip.
Bad trip, bad trip!
And I feel like there's nothing more bad trip inducing than sitting in the white walls of a hospital room waiting for a clinician to check in on you, be like, is everything okay in there? For 8 hours. And this isn't just a clinical trial thing either. There is a version of ketamine that's on the market for different types of depression. That's only like a couple hours of monitoring, and that's still mega annoying. Not to mention trying to scale that up. Every person that gets prescribed it needs to have these monitoring sessions. It's a big financial and logistical burden to make sure that this treatment is given safely. Is there a world where those logistical hurdles come down? Probably, but it'll take more trials, which then costs more time, more money. Speaking of trials, not only is DT120 being tested for other mental health disorders such as general anxiety disorder, it's also being used in lower amounts. Definium is hoping that a 50 microgram arm allows patients to see the same benefits as before while still being blinded throughout the study, without the fear of needing to monitor people for tripping said balls. The full data packages for this trial and a couple others are expected to come out later in the year, at which point Definium will have to file for a formal drug application that allows the FDA to finally approve it, to finally have doctors prescribe it to the general public. I know we don't like to prioritize the money too much around here, but the market is certainly paying attention. Definium stock has surged 97% in the last month, with other major pharma companies, notably Eli Lilly, spending up to $3.8 billion to acquire a company that makes a version of DMT. Obviously, market enthusiasm is not the same as clinical approval, but it's common for the big pharma world to follow where the money's going. But hey, if the experts are seeing genuinely good enough safety and efficacy data, enough to say that these could wipe out SSRIs entirely, maybe it's worth it to approve them quickly. But here's where I want to hear from you. Does this convince you? Is there anything else you need to see before you're really on the psychedelics bandwagon? Let me know down below. In the meantime, you should check out the first 2 videos that I did on science of psychedelics, maybe give you a little bit more perspective. But that's all for now. Thank you all for stopping by, and you stay classy, nerds.